the courts in general have given great leeway on how a party chooses its nominee. I live 5 miles from Virginia. They have a caucus there to choose their nominee, and this does go back to the Founding Fathers' original idea that the way you keep Congress, and especially keep the U.S. Senate, in close touch with the states is to have, as we all know, originally they were elected by the state Senate. So this is, we can't go back to that obviously because of the 17th Amendment, I think it is, but at the same time, this is a way that we can actually choose the candidate and make them so responsible. I think anyone would agree. If you do the polling, Tennessee is being run great in general. States are being run well. The federal government is completely broken, and there's got to be something to get their attention. This could be it. I would have never thought this up on my own. Leave it to Frank Nicely to come up with something like this. I don't know where he got it or how it came up with, but I think most of us now are saying, you know, that's an interesting prospect. The only downside, obviously, Tom, is the criticism that you could get for not allowing the people the right to vote. Well, again, lots of states do caucuses. Lots of states don't use the primary system. It's actually saves money. And in the end, in November, obviously, they will get to vote.
What if Corker just happened to tick off your members, though, you know, and for the most, and he gets primaried out somehow because you choose to nominate?
Well, there's no personality to this whatsoever. That's the reason we put this out far enough to where it's not personality. I think the original bill, unamended, would have addressed some sitting states to the U.S. Senators. Nobody wanted that. So it's not about personalities. This is about being responsive to the states.
Governor, today,
disenfranchising millions of Tennesseans who have voted in previous Senate primaries.
I told you that's the one criticism that you can get. No doubt.
Well, I mean, but that's the whole point.
It's the fundamental criticism.
Well,
is your vote more important than the votes of individual citizens?
Apparently the Founding Fathers thought that way.
Well, 100 years ago that changed.
They also oppose political parties.
Do what now?
They also oppose political parties.
That's a good point, Jazz. It is. At the same time, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that exactly, other than to say that it's not universal in all 50 states that they have primaries now. There are different ways of doing it.
Is this one of those bills you're just going to shift through the Senate and just see where the chips fall? I mean, has this really been thought through carefully in terms of this should become law?
It's been on notice since January. I think there's not a week goes by that I don't talk to somebody about this. So, yes, it's been thought through carefully. I guess I've not sat down and counted votes. You asked me where I am, and I answered it. So I've not pushed or asked or prodded. I've talked to Frank about it because the one thing I've talked to him about, that if we were to do this, don't make it be about personality. It's about principle. It's about the 10th Amendment. It's about what our Founding Fathers thought was right. And so to push it out far enough to where personalities aren't involved. That's
Governor,
have there been examples where you think that the Tennessee Senate delegation has been sort of unresponsive to the wishes of the Tennessee Legislature?
Not really. I really can't think of anything in particular. I really can't. There may have happened in the past. I just like the idea that this may be something that could sweep the country and get their attention. That the state governments, the federal government does exist because of the states. That's the way the Constitution is ratified. That's the way it works, and sometimes that gets forgotten about by our U.S. congressmen and senators.
But well, the Constitution was amended and was approved by the states. I mean, you get any other constitutional amendments?
I said I'm thinking about that. I don't think so. But this is one. But things change, exactly. So for 100 years we went one way, 100 years we gone another way. Maybe it's time to go back the other way.
So why not go through the constitutional amendment process to go?
Because we're not talking about electing them. We're talking about nominating them. And let me assure you, I know one in particular, a state senator named Rosalind Correa, who won a primary, and the courts said, no, you didn't, and took it away. Actually, the Democrat Party said, no, you didn't. And they took it away from it. That's wrong. If somebody actually voted in, you take it away. But to say, because the court said it's up to the parties on who they choose. It's not. That's the way it works. And that was upheld, surprisingly so, but it was. And so that's an example of abuse of power, not going in saying that the Republicans are going to use a Republican, the Democrats are going to choose a Democrat, and you all get to figure out who you want to elect.
Why not other offices? Having gone through a contested primary yourself, a statewide office would have been better for it.
Because it does go back again to the way the Constitution was written. I know you can say it was amended, but because the way that the whole theory of the federal government is that the states are independent laboratories. They are sovereign. The federal government exists because of them, and that has been lost. That analogy does not work with state government. It really does if you think that through.
Well, so in primaries,
Okay.
in your primaries, these wealthy moderates keep winning statewide. So is this a way, conceivably, for people to be nominated who aren't necessarily rich and who come from the right wing of your party?
Well, I think we could have rich people come to the right wing too, as far as that goes. That doesn't matter where the rich person happens to be. I know lots of right wing rich people. So that's not a good analogy either. I don't think that has to do with it at all. Now, will it take money out of some? Yes, that's a kind of a sideline to it, but that's not the reason that I'd be for the bill. I mean, obviously, as everybody in this room knows, I ran for governor and got beat because lots of reasons, but one of them had to be because of money. That's undeniable. But at the same time, that's not the reason I'm for this.
I'm curious under the Tennessee Constitution whether you could have, nominating conventions or whatever for state legislative nominations.
Yeah,
And whether-
but that's not in the Constitution. That's statutory. There's nothing in the Constitution about primaries.
Mhm.
Nothing.
So,
It's all statute.
so, I mean, if it's good for the U.S. Senate, why
Yeah.
shouldn't it be good for you guys?
What about the governor?
That's something I have to think through. But the bottom line is that's not what we're talking about. This is about the relationship between state government and federal government. And keep in mind, there are lots of counties that do have caucuses and don't have primaries. I remember in particular in 1990 in Sullivan County, they had a caucus that nominated the sheriff, nominated the county exec, nominated that. They can do that today.
Sure, but they don't do it for the legislature.
No, but I don't know. Again, it's not apples and apples comparison. It's really not. It's really not. This is about the federal government being responsive to state government. It's not apples and apples comparison. I suppose you could do that today. I'm sure you could have the state executive committee nominated. There's lots of ways you could do this, and I'm not. I don't have a preference on that one way or another. I think would our legislature be made up basically the same as it is now? Maybe different people, basically the same. But again, that's not an apples and apples comparison. We're talking about the relationship from the federal government to state government.
So the legislature then would, these resolutions like declaring opposition to federal policy or whatever, you would expect that under this, what you're talking about, the senators would pay pretty close attention or more attention to those than perhaps what they do now.
You would think so.
One last question?
Somebody who's named by the legislature.
The same irony that Brian Kelsey, I don't know if he voted for the bill or not, but I know he wasn't at one time, didn't pay attention. But Brian Kelsey was against electing judges, yet was for electing this. So that there is some irony out there, I suppose. But that's the way it works.
Is this going to be the law next year? Do you think?
That's a good question. If you'd have asked me that in January, I'd have said no. If you ask me that now, I think it's at least 50-50.
That's
Why did touch
Well,
real quick on
one more. She's been trying